Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carruth Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2004 movie titled The Whole 10 Yards. Now, The Whole 10 Yards is a crime comedy movie which runs for 1 hour and 38 minutes long. It is directed by Howard Deutch. It is produced by Dave Willis and Alan Kaufman, based on the story The Whole 9 Yards by Mitchell Kapner. The score was done by John Debney, the cinematography was done by Neil Roach, and the editing was done by Seth Flaum. And the stars of the movie are Bruce Willis, Matthew Perry, Amanda Peet, Natasha Henstridge, Kevin Pollak, Frank Collison, and Johnny Mesner. Warner Brothers, you just don't know when to leave a good thing alone. It seems that Hollywood just never seems to learn from their lessons. Warner Brothers is the most guilty in attempting to take a good thing and try to take advantage of it by making a sequel that's nowhere as close to the success of its predecessor. A primary example of what I'm saying is that after the success of the 1999 comedy Analyze This, starring Billy Crystal and Robert De Niro, in 2002 they believed, why not if we just made a sequel and milk upon the notion that it'll be just as successful as the first installment? Well, it was proved that the sequel, Analyze That, bombed at the box office, showing not every successful film needs a follow-up, and that at times it may actually hurt a franchise rather than enhancing a franchise. 2 years after Warner Brothers' deplorable attempt at endorsing their films, they decided to take advantage of another great movie like 2000's The Whole 9 Yards. And you know what they did? They milked the notion that a sequel is greatly needed for their own financial gain. Well, once again, history repeats itself, and sure enough, the sequel failed, and Warner got bitten twice due to its failed attempts at what I like to call sequel whoring. I'm not going to and I think that's probably the main reasons why Bruce Willis, and the only reason why I think Bruce Willis, Matthew Perry, Amanda Peet, Natasha Henstridge, Kevin Pollak, and, well, those five returned, it's because I guess they just couldn't, break away from their deal to make a sequel. I mean, Warner's had them in the palm of their hands, and they just couldn't let go. Now, I have a lot of tremendous respect for these five performers, and I know that they are very capable at dishing out better films than this. This is something that I would not recommend to put these movies to their resume. I mean, they have an impressive resume as it is already. There was no need for this sequel. For the record, most of the characters that survived the first installment have returned. Probably for the money. I mean, what other excuse is there? Our main protagonist, Jimmy the Tulip Tedeschi, played by Bruce Willis, and Nicholas Ozaransky, played by Matthew Perry, have reunited from their hijinks 4 years later to do what? More hijinks. The final product will make you wish you had a time machine to go back to 98 minutes ago before you ever watch this movie, because the only thing you'll get out of The Whole 10 Yards is stolen minutes of your life which you will never, ever give back. I mean, get back. When we last left off, Jimmy and Jill were actually originally supposed to go to Canada, but instead I guess they decided to hide out in Mexico. probably warmer climate, I suppose. And, they were supposed to paint the town red on Jimmy's retirement money, while Oz was about to tie the knot on Cynthia. Well, like I said, Jimmy and Jill decided to, instead of moving to Canada, they decided to move to Mexico. And yes, Oz and Cynthia did indeed tie the knot. 4 years later, Oz is now a dentist, is still married to Cynthia, who is pregnant with their first child. He now has a dental clinic in California. Oz has become more neurotic as he was in the first movie, as he is now fixated on home security devices. His paranoia has become so out of control that he even threatens to shoot an innocent little girl who's selling Girl Scout cookies. In Jimmy's world, things are also not looking as fine as we imagine. He has now decided to settle into a more serene lifestyle, and now has become kind of a stay-at-home man, obsessed with keeping his floors clean and cooking exotic dishes. He's more obsessed with leaving the roast beef out in the open for a certain amount of minutes, while Jill is a trained assassin trying to find someone to kill, only to watch her assigned victims die in rather bizarre circumstances without really her taking too much credit for their casualties. So Jimmy and Jill, so then Oz decides to go to Mexico to find Jimmy and Jill. So which means, because back from jail, the father of Yanni Gogolak, who was played by Kevin Pollak, his father Laszlo, also played by Kevin Pollak, has got out of prison, and he and his Hungarian goons show up at Oz's door to gain revenge for the death of his son Yanni. So now Oz finds Jimmy and Jill, and Laszlo eventually kidnaps Cynthia. So now Jimmy and Jill are back on the case to hunt down Laszlo and to set the record straight, I suppose. While Cynthia is held hostage, Jimmy and Jill they constantly bicker over some of the stupidest things. Jimmy and Jill, of course, stupidly bicker over his libido, as Oz's paranoia keeps going from bad to worse. From here, it's pretty much predictable all the way through. After a while, this movie becomes frustratingly overwhelming. First of all, they practically overdid it with the characters, and the lower minor characters, they practically get more airtime than they deserved. The plot just seems to drag on with very little going for it, making it very contrived and very confusing. The character seems lost, and the intentions within the characters are so shuffled very poorly. You'll need a Tylenol once this is over. If you could survive 90 minutes of this abysmal abomination. The main weakness to this movie is that the cast looked like they were having fun. Now normally I wouldn't mind it. In fact, hey, I love having fun as much as everyone else on this planet. But when you have too much fun in making the movie, it comes to a point where logic realism, and plausibility get thrown out the window. I mean, you can have fun, but not too much fun. And if the performers, the writer, and the director don't care about how this movie is flowing, why should the actors? Scriptwriter George Gallo must have had one too many drinks when writing the script. I mean, what point was he trying to prove when he wrote the script? Meanwhile, Howard Deutch took his directorial credits to a downward spiral. And yet his career started so promisingly with a great Brat Pack classic Pretty in Pink. He also soared to higher levels with movies like Getting Even with Dad, The Replacements, and Oh, How the Mighty Have Fallen. The whole 9 yards was a very enjoyable movie. And you know, like I said, I have tremendous respect for Bruce Willis, Matthew Perry, Amanda Peet, Natasha Henstridge, and Kevin Pollak. And they also turned in brilliant performances from the first of the series. And I know they are all capable of playing better roles than in this mess. And it pains me to see them in this contrived, poorly structured mess of a film. It offers nothing new to the original film, and the execution was almost non-existent. I'm sorry to say, I mean, it pains me to see tough guy Bruce Willis going around acting almost like a diva. I mean, this guy is badass. He's supposed to be, you know, this tough guy. I like Bruce Willis playing the tough guy characters like he is in like movies like Moonlighting and the Die Hard series, Red, The Expendables. This guy is supposed to be a tough-ass kind of guy. And I also like him in the more subtle, dramatic things like The Sixth Sense and Signs and so on. But here, it pains me to see this guy going around wearing an apron, doing housework, acting like a diva, getting all hussy over leaving the roast beef in the open for 5 minutes, or not adding enough seasoning to his pork belly or whatnot. It really pains me to see him in this state that he's in. And I know, and I bet you probably deep inside he must feel embarrassed after watching a movie like this, if he watches his own movies. And he should be embarrassed. But I guess this was kind of like a contract that he couldn't break out of. And I guess the same could be said for the other performers too. So I really do not recommend this movie at all. If I was to give this movie a score out of 10, I have to give it a 3. It is that bad. I'm sure that you movie fans out there could find something better to do with your time. I wouldn't recommend your friends or your family to see this movie. It is that dreadful. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you want to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you want to leave a comment, go right ahead. Remember, be kind, be courteous, don't be rude. And I will be back again with another review. So until next time, this is Eric Writer saying take care of yourselves and keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.